6 engines, 196 feet of steel and titanium. A speed so extreme it burned the skin off the airplane while it was still flying. How did one aircraft reach a speed that engineers called physically self-destructive? Why did the government try to cancel it twice before it ever flew? And what secret did this plane unlock that changed the course of American aviation forever? We're going to answer all of that. And by the time we're done, you're going to see this aircraft the way it deserves to be seen, not as a canceled program, but as one of the greatest achievements in the history of flight. Welcome to Jet Intelligence. Mach 3.1. That's over 2,000 miles per hour. Faster than a rifle bullet. Faster than any interceptor the Soviet Union could scramble. Faster than anything the US Air Force believed was even possible in a bomber. And here's the part that makes this story different from every other aviation record you've ever heard. The men who built this machine were told it couldn't be done. The program was officially canceled before the aircraft ever left the ground. And the engineers kept building anyway. What you're about to hear is not legend. It's not a rumor from a Cold War spy novel. It happened right here in the American desert, in broad daylight, and it still left the entire United States Air Force standing with their mouths open. It is 1955. The Cold War isn't a political argument. It's an existential threat pressed against the throat of every American city. The US Air Force knows something it can't say publicly. The B-52, the backbone of American strategic air power, is already becoming obsolete. Soviet radar networks are improving. Interceptor aircraft are getting faster. In 5 years, maybe 10, the B-52 won't be able to reach its targets. America needs a new bomber. Not just a faster one, not just a higher one. It needs something that makes the entire Soviet air defense system irrelevant. The requirement read like a dare. Sustained cruise speed between Mach 3 and Mach 3.2, an altitude above 70,000 feet, a range exceeding 10,000 miles, and it had to fit in existing B-52 hangars. Two of America's greatest aerospace companies took that dare. Boeing brought a swept-wing design, powerful and conventional. North American Aviation brought something that looked like it belonged to a different century. A massive delta wing canard configuration, 6 engines buried side by side in the belly, and wingtips that could fold downward in flight to generate extra lift directly from the aircraft's own shockwave. In December 1957, North American won. The XB-70 Valkyrie was born. But here's the detail that most people miss entirely. This aircraft wasn't just designed to go fast. It was designed to weaponize its own speed in a way that had never been attempted before in aviation history. At Mach 3, the shockwaves generated beneath the delta wing would become so powerful that the aircraft could actually ride them, gaining free lift from the compression of air the jet itself was creating. The faster it flew, the more efficiently it flew. Engineers called it compression lift. No bomber before or since has ever used that principle. That single innovation should tell you exactly how far ahead of its time the Valkyrie was. Building the XB-70 wasn't an engineering challenge. It was a war against physics. At Mach 3, air friction against the aircraft's skin generates temperatures close to 900 degrees Fahrenheit. That is hot enough to melt aluminum, the material used in virtually every other aircraft ever built. North American's engineers couldn't just scale up existing technology. They had to invent new technology from scratch, and they had to do it right the first time. Their answer was brazed stainless steel honeycomb panels, thin on the outside, hollow in the middle, stronger than solid steel at a fraction of the weight. The entire outer skin of the Valkyrie was made from this material, which had never been used at this scale before in history. Titanium filled in wherever temperatures climbed highest. The result was an airframe unlike anything that had ever been produced, not just in the United States, but anywhere on Earth. Then there were the 6 General Electric YJ93 engines, each producing nearly 28,000 pounds of thrust with afterburner. All 6 together gave the Valkyrie raw power that is genuinely hard to put into words. But one number helps. At full afterburner, those engines burned fuel so fast that the aircraft couldn't carry enough for a full transatlantic run at Mach 3. Every single mission had to be planned down to the minute. The fuel itself was a custom blended formula called JP6. Nothing commercially available would do. This was a machine that demanded its own everything. And here is a detail that almost nobody talks about. The aircraft's fuel wasn't just propellant, it was the cooling system. As the Valkyrie flew at high speed, fuel was pumped through heat exchangers inside the airframe, absorbing the heat building up in the skin panels, then flowing into the engines and burning away. The XB-70 quite literally cooled itself by consuming itself. That is the level of engineering that was required just to keep this aircraft alive in the environment it was designed to operate in. But the machine's worst enemy turned out to be none of those things. It wasn't the heat, it wasn't the speed, it was something small, mechanical, and deeply embarrassing. The story of the first flight will tell you everything about what this program was up against. Before we go further, please take a second to like this video and subscribe. Over 98% of viewers watch without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it means everything to us. Now back to the machine that should not have existed. September 21st, 1964. The XB-70 Valkyrie rolls onto the runway at Palmdale, California. Test pilots Al White and Colonel Joe Cotton climb in. 6 engines spool up. The aircraft lifts off, and immediately something goes wrong. The landing gear won't retract. A hydraulic system failure. The crew is forced to fly the entire first flight with the gear hanging down. The world's most advanced aircraft looking like it forgot its first day of school. The men who built this machine did not walk away. They fixed it. They flew again. And on October 12, 1964, 3 weeks after that embarrassing debut, the XB-70 broke the sound barrier for the first time, reaching Mach 1.1. Then the pace picked up fast. By October 24th, the Valkyrie flew supersonic for 40 continuous minutes. By March of 1965, that number jumped to a full hour above Mach 1. The aircraft was finding its legs, and the engineers were beginning to believe something they'd barely let themselves hope, that this machine might actually do what they'd promised. But the real test, the one that would either prove the Valkyrie was the greatest aircraft America had ever built, or tear it apart in midair, was still coming. The date was October 14th, 1965. That aircraft number 1 takes off from Edwards Air Force Base with Al White at the controls. The plan is to push past Mach 3 for the first time, hold it, and prove it can be sustained. What actually happened that day was more dramatic than anyone anticipated. As the Valkyrie crossed the Mach 3 threshold at 70,000 feet, the nose pitched sharply upward. White corrected. Then it pitched sharply down. The aircraft was hunting, oscillating at a speed where a single degree of pitch change produced a 3,000 feet per minute altitude swing. The control room went quiet. White held on. He pushed through. The XB-70 reached Mach 3.02. Then the chase planes pulled alongside and reported something that made the room go still. 2 feet of the left wing's leading edge was missing. Gone, burned, or broken away by the heat and violence of Mach 3 flight. The honeycomb panels, the revolutionary material that had never been used at this scale before, had not held up perfectly, under conditions no material had ever faced before. The aircraft had broken its own record and damaged itself doing it, but it held together. The crew was safe. Al White's official pilot report said everything about that day. The XB-70 proved its capability of attaining Mach 3 at 70,000 feet. The second aircraft took the Mach 3 mission from there, and on April 30th, 1966, aircraft number 2 completed what everyone had been waiting for, a sustained Mach 3 run lasting over 30 minutes. Full heat soak of every panel, every seal, every sensor, and everything held. The maximum recorded speed of the entire program was Mach 3.1 at 2,506 miles per hour at an altitude above 77,000 feet. Across both aircraft, the program logged 1 hour and 48 minutes of total Mach 3 flight time. No bomber, not from the United States, not from any other nation on Earth, has ever matched that record. Not before, not since. Type proud in the comments if you think the engineers and test pilots behind this program deserve far more recognition than they've ever received. June 8, 1966, should have been a celebration. General Electric, the company that built the Valkyrie 6 engines, had arranged a publicity photo shoot. Aircraft number 2 would fly in tight formation with 4 other GE-powered jets: an F-4 Phantom, an F-5 Freedom Fighter, a T-38 Talon, and an F-104 Starfighter. A Learjet carrying photographers would capture it all. By 9:30 in the morning, the photos were done. The formation began to break apart. Then disaster struck. The F-104, flown by NASA test pilot Joe Walker, drifted too close to the Valkyrie's right wingtip. The downturned wingtip created a powerful, invisible vortex, a spiraling column of air strong enough to flip a smaller aircraft in an instant. The F-104 rolled into the XB-70, shearing off both vertical tail fins and colliding with the left wing. The F-104 exploded. Joe Walker was killed instantly. The XB-70 held stable for a moment, then entered an unrecoverable flat spin. Al White activated his escape capsule and survived, badly injured but alive. Co-pilot Major Carl Cross, on his very first flight in the Valkyrie, was unable to eject in time. He did not survive. 2 men lost in a single moment. A program already under enormous political pressure hit its lowest point. The entire sequence was photographed, one of the most completely documented aviation disasters in history. Those images are haunting. They are a permanent reminder of the price paid by the finest Americans in the pursuit of something that had never been done before. But even then, the Valkyrie's story wasn't finished. With the bomber program long canceled and aircraft number 2 gone, the surviving XB-70, aircraft number 1, was transferred to NASA. And here is where history turns in a direction that almost nobody tells. Between March 1967 and February 1969, the Valkyrie flew 83 research missions. The data it produced wasn't just useful, it was foundational. Everything NASA and the Air Force learned about sustained supersonic flight, heat management at extreme speed, sonic boom propagation, structural behavior approaching Mach 3, and high-altitude aerodynamics came directly from those flights. That knowledge fed into the development of the B-1 Lancer, the low-altitude supersonic penetration bomber that became the Valkyrie's direct spiritual successor. It shaped every high-speed aircraft program that followed. And there is one more piece of this legacy that almost never gets mentioned. The XB-70 frightened the Soviet Union so badly that they fast-tracked their own response. The MiG-25 Foxbat, one of the fastest interceptors ever built, a machine that shocked the West when its performance became known, was developed specifically to counter the Valkyrie, a threat that technically no longer existed by the time the MiG-25 flew. The Valkyrie shaped the Soviet Air Force even in death. That is the kind of strategic impact that goes far beyond any speed record. So what does it actually mean that the XB-70 broke Mach 3.1? It's easy to look at the numbers. Mach 3.1, 2,506 miles per hour, 77,000 feet, and see a record. But the real meaning runs deeper than that. When this aircraft crossed Mach 3 for the first time, the men in the control room at Edwards weren't watching a speed record. They were watching America do something no other nation had ever done in a bomber, before or since. They built it from scratch, from a drawing board requirement in 1955 to a flying Mach 3.1 aircraft by 1966, in just over a decade, with slide rules, with drafting tables, without computers powerful enough to run a modern weather app. The US Air Force was stunned not because the record was unexpected. They were stunned because it was real. Because against every obstacle, political opposition, budget cuts, material failures, a program officially canceled before it ever left the runway, the people behind the Valkyrie refused to stop until it worked. That is the American spirit. Not just in the uniforms, though the men in uniform in this story were extraordinary, but in the engineers, the fabricators, the ground crews, the test pilots who ran toward the problems instead of away from them. Today, aircraft number 1 rests at the National Museum of the United States Air Force in Dayton, Ohio. 196 feet long, delta wings spanning more than 100 feet, 6 engine inlets side by side beneath the fuselage, 2 massive vertical stabilizers. When you stand next to it, you understand something no photograph can fully capture. This was not a prototype that fell short of the vision. This was the vision, fully realized. The XB-70 Valkyrie flew for the last time on February 4th, 1969. It landed at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and it has never left. But the records it set, the data it gathered, and the courage it took to build it have never stopped flying. If this video reminded you why American aviation and American military service matter, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Like this video and subscribe to Jet Intelligence so you never miss a story like this one. We'll see you in the next one.